الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, and welcome to Islamic Oasis Live. Once again, brothers and sisters, we are witnessing many significant events in the Muslim world, especially from what was once the capital of the Khilafah, Istanbul, Turkey. We have Erdogan back in power, and the elections that we all observed, we saw 52% of the vote of the population. We'll have to discuss what that exactly means. But this elections and the coming back in power of Erdogan has many significance, a lot of significance, not only in Europe, but US, Middle East, Central Asia, and of course everyone, from the intelligence agencies to the governments in general to movements, everybody is watching what's happening, where is Turkey going with specifically after these elections and coming back of Erdogan in power. So inshallah, brothers and sisters, to discuss this, we have the amazing historian, analyst, writer, author, our brother Adnan Khan, back to discuss this. Very few people that we can discuss such details with, inshallah. So I would like to welcome brother Adnan Khan back to Islamic Oasis. Brother Adnan, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you doing, Sheikh?
I'm good. How are you?
Wallah, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen. So let's get right to the chase, I guess. What's the deal, Sheikh? Now elections happen, 52%, wins by 5%, whatever margin, over Kamal. And so what's happening in Turkey, Sheikh? What's the significance of these elections? What's the future of Erdogan and his party? What are we thinking? What's happening in Turkey?
Okay. So, Jazakallah khair, bro. It's good to be here again. So this election...
Always have you. Amazing to have you here. Go ahead.
Took place really in a really interesting context. It's the 7th election the AKP party is fighting. 2 decades. It was 2002 where the AKP party first came into power. They've won every successive election. The only way you win 7 elections is when you're a monarchy, where you have no elections. So to win 7 elections, and some of them landslide victories.
He's been in power for 11, and his 11 elections, I think he himself has ran.
Yeah, because obviously if you include the presidential elections, if you include the general elections, and then even if you include the local elections, 2 decades to win that many elections. In the West, any ruler would give an arm and a leg to win that many elections. To win 2 elections in a row is great. To win that many is very, very unique. The other interesting thing is in Europe, they openly supported the opposition. In fact, The Economists, they congratulated the opposition on winning the election. If you take your mind back, the polls were saying the opposition was ahead, or it was very, very close. So this was the context the election took place in. In the end, the election result wasn't that close. In fact, Erdogan, the parliamentary vote, they won quite easily. And yes, the presidential vote for the first time in Turkish history went to a second round. He's never gone to a second round in history.
Runoff.
And because no one person got more than 50% of the vote, it goes
Sheikh,
to a
you know what
second
was
round.
interesting? Although the West was after him, I think they didn't want him really. But
So I think there is a bit of
I
a
heard somewhere
divide. The
that
Europeans,
Vladimir Putin actually congratulated him even before he won,
yeah.
which is very
So
interesting. I don't know if.
there is a problem really with Europe, the European Union. They have a problem with Erdogan. They have a problem with Turkey.
Mm,
They like the Turkey of the early 2000s, a weak country, a
mm,
backwater nation, somebody who wanted EU membership. So their view at the time was Turkey will become like Luxembourg or Austria. It will just melt into the EU, and that's
mm.
it. But that's not the Turkey of today. The Turkey of today has probably the largest population in Europe, and many votes, many policies are based on the size of your population. And when they look
Yeah.
at Erdogan, Erdogan is not going to melt into the EU. Erdogan is going to want to lead it. Erdogan is going to want to decide the direction it goes. So
I
if you
mean,
look
you
at the
have
French,
EU and then you have NATO. I mean, you have the second largest army in NATO. I mean,
yeah,
that's pretty powerful, yani, position to be in.
yeah. I
Do
mean,
the Turks
you got,
how well do you think that? Well, I'm sure the Turks realize this, but uh, where does he want to take Turkey, Sheikh? Does he have a
well,
vision? Do you see them?
this is the $1 million or the €1 million question. It's been 2 decades. If you were going to take your country somewhere, you'd think after 2 decades it'd be very clear now, isn't it? 2 decades is a long time. I mean, within 5 years or at least 10 years, it will be clear where you're taking your country. So it's been 2 decades now. So after 2 decades, I mean, it's hard to say he's taking the country in the Islamic direction. And what I mean by that is it's been 2 decades. You control every institution. You got rid of your opposition. There's no agenda here to implement the whole of Islam. When it comes
But
to
can he,
making
Sheikh? Can he look? Let's be, as they say, brutally honest here. I mean, do you really think Turks are ready for Islam? Even though I understand it was the vote that came to him was a vote of piety, and it was the vote of the pious, and I know, I mean, there is that going on, but when you look at the Turks, when you go to Turkey, when you know the are they ready for Islam? Will there be if he declares the Khilafah tomorrow, will it survive?
So Erdogan and his party, who have won 2 decades worth of elections, they are a party where the support base is people who are conservative Muslims. They want more Islam. They praise Erdogan for
But
allowing
Sheikh,
women to
52% of the population that supported him, you think they are conservative Muslims? I mean, is there that many even conservative Muslims in Turkey?
See, what you've got to keep in mind is Erdogan's whole agenda, his whole aura has been, I'm the Islamic-minded politician. You conservative Muslim, the ideas you have, I'm from you. And this is the direction I want to take Turkey in. So you need to support me. So when he turned Hagia Sophia into a mosque, there's a AKP party publication. And they said on the cover, so is Khilafah next? That's the support base
I remember.
of Erdogan.
Yes, I do remember that.
That's the support base of Erdogan. So what he's done is support me. My agenda is Islamic. In the long run, my plan is to make the country Islamic. Is to become the neo-Ottomans, and that's the direction we're going. So people who support him, they support him for that because this is their background. So if you look at the map
Because
of
even
the
the flags,
Erdogan won.
even the flags that they were raising, I saw him. They had the Ottoman Tohra in the back and his picture in the front. Okay, I see.
So this is the AKP party support base. Their support base is actually Islamic. It's actually conservative. So when Erdogan turns Hagia Sophia into a mosque, when Erdogan criticizes Israel, when Erdogan talks about the Muslim Ummah, this is what they believe in, right? However, he's been in power for 2 decades, so this is a good time to measure what he's been doing. Because what a lot of people unfortunately do, because there's a lot of support for Erdogan outside Turkey. And they will narrate stories like Hagia Sophia, the hijab, which is fine, yeah? But we got 2 decades of a track record. And actually, when you start looking at his 2 decades of track record, there's a lot of issues. But a lot of Muslims brushed that under the carpet because Turkey, hardcore secular country, you've got a Muslim leader, is the best we've got. However, the Syrians have a different view of Erdogan. The Iraqi people have a different view of Erdogan. Yeah,
Well, he stabbed
the
him in the
people
back.
this is it. So when we have to measure Erdogan on his track record, we can't pick and choose. When you measure him on his track record, what you see is there's a lot of that. When it comes to action, there's very little.
Well, the last 20 hours, supposedly in the last 20 hours, they already promised about 1.6 million refugees that will go back to Syria. That was just, this came out there.
So if you, the last 2 weeks, there's been normalization with Bashar al-Assad.
Yeah,
And
see,
actually,
I wanted to...
Turkey and
thing.
Erdogan have been at the forefront of normalizing relations with Bashar al-Assad.
Here's the thing. So there is this publication by the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. And so what it says here is that it seems that right before the elections, Erdogan started his own engagement with Damascus, first through intelligence channels, then through the foreign ministry before the elections. The outreach itself has shown voters Erdogan's intention to match the opposition in pursuing a deal with Assad to send some refugees back to Syria. And this was one of the assessments written even before the elections took place. So, Sheikh, even though I think a lot of Syrians who now Turkish Syrians, they took Turkish passports and things like that, became Turkish, they supported him because they thought that this guy is genuine.
Yeah. So they supported him. Erdogan supported many of the rebel groups in the north of Syria. So they had hope he's going to support them. All of these people have been abandoned now.
Yeah.
They've all been abandoned. And what this shows you is the agenda couldn't have been here that Erdogan was going to save the Syrian people. Because if he was going to save the Syrian people, these are not the actions you do. What Erdogan's done is he took the credibility that I'm helping the Syrian people. Muslims around the world saw Erdogan's doing something. And that was his agenda. His agenda was no more than that. And in fact, if we look at the last 20 years of Erdogan, he does many things which are in line from Islam to get support and to build his own strength and profile. However, on most things, he doesn't deliver. And I'll give you a simple example. What was stopping the Syrian military to go into Syria? Bashar al-Assad is finished. His army's finished. The argument people say is if he had gone into Syria, Russia was there. We don't want war with Russia. Fine. But he went to war with Russia in Libya and he went into war with Russia in Armenia. So how come he can go to war? So how comes he can go to war in 2 countries with Russia, but he can't go to war with Russia in Syria? What's going on here? Erdogan is picking and choosing his conflicts.
But Sheikh, Turks are dependent on Russia for gas. I mean, they cannot survive without Russian gas.
It's actually changing now because what's happened is Turkey used to rely on significant energy supply from Russia. And during COVID, this actually went down quite a lot. And also Turkey has actually found some of its own reserves as well. But Turkey, interestingly, you mentioned energy. It's very important as an energy transit route for Europe. So Turkey has other options, yeah? But what Erdogan's doing is, I have relations with all the strong leaders in the world. I have relations with all the top countries in the world. So he sits with Putin, then he will sit with an American ambassador, then he will sit with a European ambassador, then he will criticize the European ambassador, then he will criticize Putin, then he will criticize America, and then he will sit down with them as well. And when you look over a 20-year period, this is a regular thing. So I think, Muslims have to move away from, he brought the hijab back. That's a 15-year-old policy now. We can't forgive everything Erdogan's doing because he put one rule of Islam back. In fact, rule of Islam...
Let me go back to economics a little bit here, Sheikh. So, for instance, I think, does he have to do this because of this so-called unorthodox economic policy that he has to keep the interest rates low, to keep his population, which is over 50%, that is on minimum wage, making no more than $443 a month. Is this why he has to, at least from what we're seeing in the press? I was watching this Jewish press, and they're saying something like, well, look, majority of the supposed pious who support him are uneducated, illiterate. They just like the things that he has to say about Islam.
They're all rural people.
The rural people, the sincere people. And then on the other hand, the really educated and the ones who they are supporting him for different reasons. But does he have to do that to keep his base happy and at the
No, so
same time keep
remember,
the economy running in Turkey?
so when Erdogan took over 2002, the Turkish economy was about $250 billion.
Mm,
Today it's $850 billion. And in 2016, it nearly became a $1 trillion
economy.
economy. Under him, the economy has improved drastically. He paid off the IMF debt.
Mm.
He's been building infrastructure. Turkey is an energy transit route, and Turkey is also a route for goods that come into Europe. Turkey also actually is a manufacturer and refiner of raw materials, which you need for basic construction and infrastructure.
And
So
even
Turkey
seems
has
to
a
improving on the defense too. Defense really,
so
it's
even in the defense,
surprising
a
to
lot of
see.
money is going in. A lot of money is going to defense. I
Drones
mean,
and
they're
selling drones
building
to Iran, to Ukraine.
exactly.
But
They're
how
selling
does that
drones to
happen? Okay, he's
Iran.
selling drones to Ukraine and at the same time buying oil from Russia.
Yeah. So that what you just said sums up Erdogan.
Mm.
Yeah. Erdogan's selling line is, I have an agenda. Yeah. With a bit of Islam, I have an agenda. If you look at his actions, what he's doing is whatever makes him strong, whatever gives him credibility, he does.
But is that making
He,
Turkey strong also?
the thing is, his economic policy originally, for the first decade, it did make Turkey strong.
Mm.
But now it's coming to haunt him now. So, for example, in 2012, Turkey paid off all its IMF debt, but today the national debt is higher because
Yeah.
they've been borrowing more and more money from international markets. So now the
Yeah.
national debt is half of the economy.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually,
And
on that, let me read something to you here. It says, in pursuit of this goal, which was U.S. foreign policy to boost domestic popularity, it says, in pursuit of this goal, Erdogan has repaired damaged relations with Arab heavyweights over the past couple of years. One result was that in 2021, the United Arab Emirates agreed to a 5 billion currency swap with Ankara and pledged to invest 10 billion in Turkey, startups and high-tech industry. Dubai also purchased hundreds of millions of dollars worth of drones from Ankara. Saudi Arabia deposited 5 billion in Turkish central bank in March 2023, right before the elections. And Erdogan dropped court case over the 2018 Istanbul murder of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. And Riyadh is poised to both make arms purchases from Ankara and pursue investment opportunities. So it says Erdogan successfully secured a federal cash interjection from Russia, accounting to nearly 10 billion through the Akiyu nuclear plant. Akhi, when you say borrowing, is this what it means? That this is not borrowing, or he's purchasing? He's bringing the money in.
Borrowing is Turkey's been borrowing dollars from the international markets, which has to be repaid one day in dollars. So if the exchange rate changes, the amount you're repaying increases as well.
So hold on. So international markets meaning currency markets, capital markets,
bond markets, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So with the IMF, that goes into their public sector books.
But what is the difference between the capital markets and IMF?
So IMF get involved in your economy. They get involved in your budget. When you borrow from international markets, they just want you to repay. They don't get involved in your economy. So you find all the countries that borrow IMF money, IMF then start telling them you have to make reforms in your economy, you have to prioritize this. IMF, with the international markets, that's not what happens. International markets are literally just investors, right? And because they've been borrowing in dollars, when the exchange rate changes, the actual amount of money you got repaid goes up as well. So the debt at the moment, if I remember, is about $450 billion. The economy is only $850 billion. So what he's done is he's borrowed his way to economic success. And now the chickens have come home to roost. Now inflation's going through the roof. Yeah. Now, and inflation hurts. You mentioned the rural people, the price. This is a country that historically has had high inflation, 70%, 100%.
Yeah.
Right. However, Turkey can still navigate its way through this. Yeah. The thing here is Turkey manufactures. Turkey has a support industrial base. The problem is Erdogan literally the ruling elite in Turkey is Erdogan. It is him personally. And we've seen previously, there's truth in this. When people say he's becoming authoritarian, he is. Now he refuses to accept criticism. If you criticize him, he gets very authoritarian with you. So anyone who criticizes him is thrown in prison, or
Is that one of the ways that
disappear.
he won the elections? I heard also the issue of media, that the opposition was not given much of the media. He just
Yeah,
took over
so this
media.
is the opposition. They said something very interesting. They go, "This is the most dodgiest elections we've had, but we accept the result." And what it means is nothing illegal was done. There was no dodgy
Yeah, because
counting,
the question
nothing.
was always, is it free and fair? They said it's free, but wasn't fair.
Yeah, but that's because Erdogan, 80% of the media are pro-Erdogan. The judiciary is pro-Erdogan. The military generals are pro-Erdogan. The state is Erdogan. Erdogan basically is everything. So you're never going to win in that system because the system is Erdogan. So even, for example,
Is
the
that
three
good
week
for us? Is that good for Muslims?
look, if he was implementing Islam and an Islamic agenda, then it's fine. But remember, in Islam we have institutions. You're supposed to build institutions.
I understand
Rules
that.
come and go.
Understood, but I'm talking from the perspective of, whenever you talk to Muslims, they say, well, who else do we have somebody like him? At least he says certain things publicly. I mean, even
Now,
I think Netanyahu issue, he said something against Israel publicly, but then they have the warmest ties when it comes to, private chats and things like this. They were one of the first ones to even congratulate him. Seems like right away there was congratulations being sent out from Israel and all that. But looking at the Muslim world, أخي, يعني you don't feel that you're going to be, when you go to Turkey at least, you still feel that you can practice your Islam in certain way.
you can in a certain way.
Of course, certain ways
if you call out Erdogan, if you call out his foreign policy, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
But for a country like Turkey that is hardcore secular, this is quite significant. Hijab is permissible. You see the Islamic sentiments being allowed to come out. Interestingly, if you look at the electoral result,
Even the madaris, Sheikh, I've spoken to a lot of, whenever I go there, I have a lot of conversation with a lot of imams. Sometimes some of them are in positions. And they said we would never be in these positions if we did not have Erdogan. And many of them, they studied literally in underground basements to be muftis today.
Yeah. See, look, what we've got to keep in mind here, there is such a thing as a secular Muslim. A secular Muslim is someone who prays, who fasts, who goes to the mosque, who dresses Islamically, has a beard, but his politics isn't Islamic. So we've got to be careful that this is what people did. Even I live in Europe, I live in the UK, they have no problem us having beards, praying, doing Jummah, doing Tarawih, eating halal food. You have to slaughter meat in this country. You have to stun the animal. There's an exemption in the law for Muslims. But when it comes to your politics, when it comes to one ummah, that's a different story. So this is why we're going to be careful here, where all these examples of support for Erdogan are all on individual ibadah issues, which are fine. But why does nobody account or pull up Erdogan on foreign policy? Why does nobody account him and pull him up on the economy, which are the most important things that affect us? What people say is he's allowed the hijab. He's converted a mosque, Hagia Sophia, into a mosque. If Hagia Sophia wasn't a mosque, people will keep praying like they've always been doing in Turkey. So this is the problem here. People are looking at one part of Erdogan and they're missing the whole picture. And this is a person who's been in power for 20 years. We have a whole track record we can actually look at. And the conclusion I've come to with Erdogan is it's really just for power for himself. Because after 20 years, if there was a grand agenda, he would have done it by now. 20 years is too long.
But let me ask you, if there was a grand agenda, let's say there was, does he have the wherewithal to implement it?
Turkey, I'll give you an example. Turkey is central to so many global issues. If you want to resolve Syria, you have to have Turkey at the table.
Yes, of course.
If you want the stability in Iraq, in the north of Iraq, is because of Turkey. If you want to have the two-state solution, Turkey needs to be at the table. Yeah,
all over Africa also.
Azerbaijan, Armenia, their war over Nagorno-Karabakh, Turkey has to be at the table. Libya, Turkey has to be at the table. EU energy security is all related to Turkey. Refugees all coming into Europe from war-torn countries, they turn to Erdogan to fix it. So Erdogan is important Turkey is critical to all the key global issues. So why is Erdogan not putting his solution forward to these? Why is he getting money for it? Why? So if you look, what's his solution for Syria? What's his solution for Iraq? His solution for Iraq was the American solution. What's the solution for Palestine? His solution for Palestine is two-state solution, which is the American solution. So what you find is Erdogan gets involved in political issues, takes credit for it, but actually he's not going in any direction with these. He's literally making sure he gets credit for it. And we've had leaders like this in the past. We've had Gamal Abdel Nasser. We've had leaders who get involved in issues and say, look how great I am.
I think Imran Khan was trying to do that, but it didn't work for him.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, look, if Erdogan had been in power for one term and we had this conversation, then it would be correct to say, Adnan, you're being harsh. He needs time, right? But we're having this conversation 20 years after. I'll give you a funny stat. 43% of Turkish people have known no leader other than Erdogan. That's how long he's been in power. Nearly half the population have only had one leader their whole life, Erdogan. So he's been in power for 2 decades. Where's your plan to take Turkey? It would be clear now. What Muslims are settling with, and I understand this, is that, look, at least we've got something from Islam from him. Yeah. However, the Americans look at Erdogan differently. They say, we look at Iraq, we look at Syria, we look at Palestine, we look at Libya. Erdogan has been very useful for us. He's actually put in motion the strategy we have. So they've outsourced their strategy to someone else, and Erdogan's been very good at fulfilling it.
Well, it seems like they asked Erdogan right before the Taliban issue happened with airport. I've heard literally the conversation he was saying today. He was on Face the Nation, Erdogan in the US here, and she asked him regarding some conversation with Joe Biden, and he said, because Joe Biden supposedly called him an aristocrat and things like this. But he said, I don't know why he's saying these things to me now. While Afghanistan situation happened, they came to us to take over the airport and to manage the airport after the Americans leave. So when you say that, look, America leaves Turkey to kind of handle their foreign policy agendas, is that what you mean? Because at the end, Turkey kind of handles it for them.
Yeah. This is Erdogan. So for the first decade of his power, Erdogan and the AKP were very open that we have a very close relationship with America. And they used to say this to show the Kemalists, you don't want to mess with us. We are very close to America. And if you mess with us, we've got America on our side. So I remember 2003, Condoleezza Rice went to Turkey and they come up with a shared vision document. All the key issues in the world and how America and Turkey have the same view. We're going to work together. So this is one of the reasons why the army and the Kemalists, they couldn't challenge him. But they realized that America is supporting him. Things have changed slightly, though, in the second decade. There are congressmen in America who feel Erdogan's too powerful. Can we really trust him? And they don't like the fact that Erdogan is doing things and taking credibility for it. But so these are the congressmen that got in the way of Turkey being part of the F-35 program. They managed to get Turkey kicked off. In fact, Donald Trump tried to stop that from happening. He tried to delay it, but Donald Trump lost the election. In fact, Donald Trump and Erdogan had a very close relationship. I'll give you one funny example. In one phone call Erdogan and Donald Trump had, Erdogan goes to Donald Trump, look, why are American troops still in Syria? And Trump goes, because we're fighting ISIS. But he goes, you've defeated ISIS. And Trump goes, you know what, you're right, Erdogan, I'm going to pull American troops out. He got on his phone and he tweeted, I've just had a conversation with Erdogan, I'm going to pull US troops out. Congress had to pass legislation to stop him from doing it. That was the scenario. So there are some congressmen, they've got a problem with Erdogan. But the overall US policy is Turkey is an ally. We can work together.
A difficult ally, as they say.
Yeah, look, when you go into the details, what you find is they're not all there doing high fives, yeah?
Right.
What Erdogan's got to look at is really your closest to America is how you dealt with a lot of your domestic issues. The way you kept the Kemalists at bay was, I'm very close to America. The way you've been able to become dominant in the country is because you've been working with America. It doesn't necessarily mean they see eye to eye. I remember Erdogan actually proposed a no-fly zone in the north of Syria. And the Americans said no. And he never came back on that issue ever again. Yeah, so
that would have been the end of them. That would have been the end of Assad.
Did you get this? And then Erdogan's got bigger problems now. If you look at the electoral result, it was 47, 52%. if I was Erdogan, that's quite uncomfortable reading. This is the guy that used to win landslide victories.
Yeah, so
The
the way
opposition.
it seems like the way it worked out, Sheikh, is that you have to have 50% in the Turkish politics, I guess, to get over 50%.
So in
Somebody has
the
to.
presidential race, you need to win 50% or more.
Right.
If you don't, then it goes to a second round.
Right.
In the parliamentary election, you just need a simple majority. And the last two elections, AKP have to be in coalition government to get a majority.
Mm.
So prior to
Yes,
that, they were
so
getting
they had to
majority themselves.
Oh, okay. So this time they
Yeah.
had.
So
He
this
did.
now they were in a 5-party alliance,
Mm.
and they won the parliamentary election.
Yeah.
And then Erdogan had to go to a second round. What this shows you is a couple of things. Firstly, the opposition is a lot more united now. Erdogan very cleverly disunited the opposition. So this time the CHP got together a coalition and they fought together. And interestingly, even the CHP is changing. Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, he openly said that the hijab ban was wrong that we did in the past. He actually said that.
He said that the last few days before to get. It seems like he was trying to
So
get
he's
some
realized
of the
now.
conservative.
So what the opposition have realized is, if they go for the secular lot and Erdogan goes for the conservative lot will win by a small majority. So what they've realized is they need to win some of the conservative vote. And what they've realized now is half of our population nearly is conservative. So we need to reach out to them. So what the CHP is saying now is we're in a different Turkey today. We're in a Turkey today where the rural areas are conservative and we have to represent them as well. That is a massive change. CHP, this is Kemal Atatürk's party.
Yeah.
They are now recognizing we have to change. So Erdogan for a long time had managed to divide.
So isn't that a good thing, Sheikh? I mean, see, look, here's the thing. I understand. I'm speaking what the common Muslims are watching. They're saying that, look, Erdogan goes to the masjid and thanks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his win, and look at where Kamal goes back to the mausoleum of Ataturk. I understand it's nice, gymnastics, but I mean, should we be surprised to see Muslims happy with him doing that?
No, of course not. What makes Muslims happy is the Islamic stuff they see, and that's good. That shows that what they're seeing.
Yes, we don't see that anywhere, Akhi. I mean, Saudi Arabia, we don't see that. We see Saudis are dancing naked on the streets of Riyadh.
That's because Saudi Arabia is run by a family, and as far as they're concerned, it's run by a family. Whilst Erdogan, his support base is Islamic. He said, if you support me, I will bring back conservative Islam, which is done. Saudi Arabia, as far as they're concerned, it's a Saud state. You're citizens to the Saud family. So that's why they don't have elections, they have transitions. Right? And obviously they throw loads of money at the people, and you get free everything, nearly. And that's why people put out with it, Whilst in Turkey, you had to win elections, you had to defeat the opposition. Right? But in many ways, although Erdogan's won, I think now he can only lose. And the reason why I say that is there's a lot of stuff moving against him. The opposition is more united. And the opposition now...
The next year elections are coming up again, I get, but this are
municipal elections. Find, in the local election, they've lost all the key urban areas. Istanbul, Ankara...
And even Hatay didn't support him much. Obviously, it was destroyed. And so how did this happen? I went to Hatay. I saw Rihania. Rihania was still okay. Hatay was completely gone. I visited all of the areas. I was shocked that Erdogan was still able to pull this out, man, with the kind of destruction that you saw in the south.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it got very little election coverage, the earthquake. That was the first thing. And then also...
you never saw anything about what's happening there.
I think people just made a decision that if we don't vote for Erdogan, it will be worse. The secular lot will be back. And do you really want that? I mean, obviously, this is near the Syrian border where... Remember, one of the coalition partners with the AKP is a pro-Kurdish party. Right? So you had that. But look, this is what Erdogan is good at. He's won successive elections. He knows how to rally. He knows how to win elections. This is something he's very good, smooth at. He's very capable at. But I would say, look, we have to measure him by his actions. And you've got 20 years to measure him on. And what we can't do...
That I understand. Is the secularism. So here's the thing. I mean, I understand at the end of the day, secularism still won. I mean, this was not a victory for Islam.
I mean,
It
you were
was.
mentioning. Look, you were mentioning.
What is the difference here
Kamal.
between the secularism of AKP party versus Kemalist? What is the difference here?
Look, the difference is for the Kemalists, Islam should just be a private thing. It should have no place in the public sphere. Right? That's what Mustafa Kemal tried to do, and that's what these guys are trying to do. What the AKP party do is, all the individual bits of Islam, we're going to protect that. So, you be able to pray, you want to fast, you want to wear hijab. When it comes to economic policy, when it comes to foreign policy, none of that's based on Islam. So actually, both of them are secular. The only difference is look, you've got to look like Erdogan is from a Naqshbandi background. When he looks at the world, there will be a bit of Islam because that's a background he's from.
Norsi. It seems like he's more Norsi, or is he not?
So he went to one of those Imam Hatim schools. He grew up from a Naqshbandi background. So when you're from a Naqshbandi background, you're going to be a bit conservative, aren't you? But his foreign policy is not conservative. His foreign policy is not Islamic. So what we're going to be, people look at him. He prays. He goes to the mosque. Yeah, he narrates the Quran. Great. But where is the Quran when it comes to foreign policy? Where's the Quran when it comes to Syria? Where's the Quran when it comes to dealing with the Europeans? It's not there.
But see, Sheikh, this is what you learn from the heads of the Naqshbandi Tariqa, right? I mean, remember Hisham Kabbani and Nazir Kabbani. These people used to go and shake hands with Islam Karimov while he was alive. And then these were the examples of zikr and, all kinds of things and spirituality. And I remember them. One time, I was hesitating praying behind him. He came here at one time in one of the masajid, and I just said to myself, you can even pray behind the munafiq, and I still prayed. But because I was so angry that this guy would go and shake hands with Islam Karimov, who was literally boiling people alive.
Yeah, unfortunately, you'd find, with a lot of our ulama, the politics is not Islamic. What you find is they'd be really pious in their individual personal lives. In their public sphere, when it comes to politics, there's no Islam whatsoever.
So where's the piety? What piety is this?
Well, I mean, the piety is just in their own personal lives only. I mean, you're right. I mean, how can you be shaking hands with a murderer?
What kind of fearing of Allah is this?
No, it's not. Look, this is secularism. This is where you separate your deen from public life. And that's why, look, the difference between Erdogan and Kemal is Kemal's very open about his secularism, whilst Erdogan's not. Erdogan hides behind some Islamic ideas and Ummah and Ayah Sophia, and we're conservatives, yeah? But look, if that's, so 20 years have gone by. We should be able to say now where Erdogan's
he built the largest mosque in Turkey, man. Come on, give him something. 20 years.
That's fine.
I remember asking this question. They said, "Oh, we have no idea how many people were given jobs because of that." I said, "Nice. This must be unorthodox economics."
Remember, if that mosque wasn't built, people could still pray in Turkey.
No, but let me ask you, Sheikh: is this quantitative? Easing, is that what he's doing by?
No, this is him. What he's doing is he's building his legacy. Yeah,
he is bringing in all that cash to somehow ease the tensions in the markets here in Turkey, right? Or is that?
Yeah, look, obviously, because you're the ruler, you have to deliver. Yeah, he was the mayor of Istanbul, and he realized you have to deliver. So what he does is on day-to-day living, he has delivered. He's built infrastructure. He's done these sort of things. Yeah, the thing is, Turkey can achieve a lot more than that.
That's the issue.
But we're weak. Russia, America, Europe, we can't do anything. But he gets him. So what you find is he gets off the hook when it comes to those things by the Ummah. When it comes to domestic things, people point out, what is he doing? Oh, he's doing this. When it comes to foreign, like for example, in Israel, it's very clear what he's done. It should be clear to everyone now when he
$7.4 billion
Israeli leader. When he criticized the Israeli leader, it was for show. Because a few months later, they're back to relationship again.
Yeah, that's what I was reading. They said $7.4 billion as far as trade, and then $8 billion in tourism, and the most closest relationships with Israel.
One of the key arguments Israel uses is, look, we have normal relations with Egypt and Turkey. So what's the problem with the rest of the Muslim world? If these two key Muslim countries have normalized relations, they recognize Israel. right? And why has Turkey done that? In fact, how can Erdogan support the Palestinians when he has cozy relationship with the Zionists?
Yeah, but then why is he so famous amongst the Palestinians, Sheikh? And they don't see that, or is that just...
No, but remember, most of our rulers in history have said we support the Palestinian cause.
Okay, so that's the
The
rhetoric
Mall
has to be there.
of the Nasser did that. Yasser Arafat did that. King Faisal did that. I mean, which ruler? You have to support the Palestinian cause. What you do physically is a different issue. Verbally, you have to support it because the Ummah supports the Palestinian issue. Yeah, but what's Turkey supporting? They're saying the Palestinians should have their own state. Give up the rest to Israel. At least you get your own state.
Right.
How is that a solution? How would that support the Palestinians?
That's the American solution, two-state solution, basically. And so he basically...
Can you see what? So when people say he supported the Palestinians, yeah, he's supported Hamas. He's given them some funding and aid, fine. But they're calling for a two-state solution.
Basically, somehow politically normalize what needs to be done, which is...
So really what you should have done is we're going to break relations with Israel. We're going to expose the Muslim rulers who have got close relations with Israel, right? And he should rally the Ummah that we need to liberate Bayt al-Maqdis. And this will be the worst thing for Israel. Why? Israel can't stand up to Turkey. Israel needs good, friendly relations with Turkey. But that's not Erdogan's agenda. Erdogan's agenda is, I want to keep my throne. He doesn't want a war like that. He wants small wars where he comes strong. So Azerbaijan, Libya. He doesn't want to fight these big wars, but that's not his agenda. His agenda is, I want to have my throne, I want to enjoy being in power, and I will leave a legacy. So he's very careful which issues he gets involved in. He gets involved in issues where if it goes wrong, it won't have a big impact. But if it goes right, it makes him look strong.
Let's talk about a few other things, Sheikh. As far as Europe is concerned, you see the situation is getting hot both in Kosovo and the Serbian situation again. Serbia has put their military on alert again. Seems like Turkey also sent some more soldiers. Could this... I mean, do you see something again happening in Europe and affecting Turkey? Is that another... something, I don't know. It seems very... It's very hot. The tensions are very high.
Turkey historically has been very influential in the Balkans. In fact, Turkey views the Balkans
their backyard,
as a place to have influence. Yeah, and they did in the past. They went all the way to Austria. Yeah. So you find the Muslim... I mean, it was the Ottomans who spread Islam there. So all the ulama there, all the mosques there are linked to Turkey.
Yeah.
So when you have tension there, even all the Balkans countries realize you need to have Turkey at the table if you want to actually resolve it. But again, I'll ask the question, what is Turkey doing? What is Turkey's solution to the Balkan problems? There isn't. They're working within the framework the EU has. There's no overall solution they're proposing. Now, Turkey can propose a solution and they can put the resources in. But that's not their agenda. That's not what...
But is he economically, financially there? Can he actually propose and then...
Look, already Turkey puts a lot of money into the Balkans. So this is not an area they've got nothing going on. Turkey is already involved. So the question here is, where do you want to take this region? You know, so look, Turkey, and this is why Turkey is in a very unique position. You've got the Balkans on one side. You've got the Middle East on the other side. Yeah, you're on the Mediterranean. These are all key strategic areas. So Turkey isn't some backwater poor country. Turkey is a strategic country. So the Europeans want Turkey on their side. The Americans want Turkey on their side. Why do they want that? Because whoever gets Turkey has a very strategic country on their side. The Russians want Turkey on their side. So what Erdogan should be thinking, if all these powers want me, doesn't that show that Turkey is a very powerful country? So if the sultans of the Ottomans were alive today, would they be in alliances with these countries, or would they be giving their solutions to these problems? And if you look, since the Balkans Wars, what the Europeans done, they just created countries, created more ethnicities, which is creating more tension. You know, how is that a solution? They just thought, you know, if we create more countries, things will be all right, right? Remember, the Balkans was where World War I originally started.
Yeah.
So what happened in the Balkans affects the whole world, right? So once again, what's Erdogan's overall solution to this area? There isn't. He gets involved. He puts a bit of money in. He works within the framework of NATO or the EU, and then he takes credit for it. Overall, he hasn't done actually anything in that particular area. I mean, probably the best example is Syria. You know, what did he do in the end? There's a lot Turkey could have done in Syria if it wanted to.
Let me ask you, Sheikh, in Syria now, are you thinking that they will get rid of Hayat Tahrir Sham also? What do you think they will do in the northern
Yeah,
northern
these.
Syria.
If you look now, it should be clear. All the groups were
Yeah.
funded and armed by the
Mm.
surrounding countries.
Yeah.
None of the groups were giving enough money or arms to remove the regime.
Mm.
Now that the job's been done, they're going to cut their funding.
Mm.
Most of the groups have been forced to negotiate with the regime anyway. So all these Riyadh
They have
conference,
already, of course.
Astana conference, they used to handpick to go and negotiate with them. And now that they're normalizing relationship with Bashar, these groups are going to realize now basically we're finished. So they'll just enter negotiations with the regime. So after 10 years,
And then what
when
happens?
you
The
put
regime
the
just takes over?
no, so what will happen? No one cares about Syria anymore. Everyone's eyes is on Ukraine. Everybody's eyes on
Sure,
other
sure.
issues.
But that's what
It
I'm
went on
saying.
for
So now
10
what
years.
will happen to northern territories?
No,
Do you
so
think?
the problem Bashar has is for his survival, he had to basically destroy the country. So the country now needs investment.
Mm.
It needs to rebuild.
Mm.
And this is where the surrounding countries are going to get involved now. This is where your Turkeys and your Gulf countries are going to get involved.
Mm.
Russia's probably going to want to get involved as well. And remember, when the Syrian uprising started, Hillary Clinton and in Britain, they were calling Bashar al-Assad a reformer. He's a reformer.
Yes, I remember when he came in power. When he came,
Yeah,
yes.
when he came in power.
He was Western educated. He's a
So
gentle
Bashar al-Assad
guy.
and his wife. So his wife Asma, she's from the UK.
Mm.
They were being wined and dined at Buckingham Palace. You've got
Yes, no, I
images of
remember
John
that.
Kerry in a restaurant. So Bashar al-Assad was a reformer. This is what they were calling him. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Remember, MBS
The doctor,
was a
the
reformer.
doctor. I remember that. The doctor.
And this word reformer is because remember MBS was a reformer at one time as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And then Jamal Khashoggi happened. So when the uprising happened, they took the position of we're helping the uprising. So we're supporting all the people uprising. We're supporting all the groups. We're arming them to overthrow the regime. Really, they weren't. Really, they were crippling the movements. And in fact, the movements all are set now that we were never given the Taliban were given surface-to-air missiles when they fought the Russians.
Yes.
The rebels were given. Look at what Ukrainians are getting now. They're getting sophisticated weapons. Why did they not give that to these guys? But the whole idea wasn't you're going to win. They spent 10 years making sure change doesn't come to Syria. And remember, in Syria, the people wanted the regime gone. They wanted the regime gone. So what's happening? The regime survived now. When the surrounding countries normalize relations, the rebel groups are going to have to accept this now.
So
the lesson I take from this.
Turkey. Okay, so what happens to the northern territories? So Turkey goes in and says, does that become kind of like a Turkish territory here? Are we?
What will happen is, I think Turkey will effectively manage that territory because Bashar is bankrupt. It's better for him somebody else takes care of it. Yeah, but it's a bit of a problem because Turkey's got economic problems. It's costly.
Well, so most of northern Syria is all lira now. Anyway, and by the way, I mean they're expecting lira to go up to 25.
Yeah. So can you see now? Erdogan use Syria for his personal ambition. Now it's proving costly. So now he's trying to send the people back. But you created your own problem. If you were sincere, you wouldn't have had this problem. But because he had ulterior objectives. Now, so in Turkey, generally people hate the Syrians. They want them to go back. They feel all these Syrians have come. They push wages down. Yeah, it's costing the Turkish. In fact, this was one of the criticisms the opposition had against Erdogan, or his whole Syria strategy been really, really bad for Turkey. But you're seeing now the normalization with Bashar. Turkey's at the front of the queue. Turkey wants to normalize relations. They'll probably cut a deal with him that, look, we will support you, but it's Syrian territory. What they're going to do is maintain the border. That's the border, and you run it, and we just man the border. Because really, now it's outlived its use. For Erdogan, it doesn't make you any stronger now, Syria. Yeah, so now that's it. He's washing his hands off it. Job done. 10 years. And it was a means to an end. It wasn't an end in itself. Right, and that is how Erdogan operates. And so, what's the difference between Erdogan and any Western leader? There's no difference. It's all national interest or personal interest. Now, if we were having this conversation in 2004, okay, that's quite harsh. Give him time. But we're having this conversation 20 years since he's been in power. So the Syrians, as you will see, they have a very different view of Erdogan.
No, this
is no amount of mosques, no amount of mosques in Turkey. No amount of hijabs, can ever replace what Erdogan's done for them. The fact that he's abandoned them now.
Wow. So okay. So that's subhanallah. So Sheikh, final issue here. NATO. I mean, this whole thing between Sweden and Finland, and how the Turks are, I guess, accepted Finland in NATO but not Sweden. Uh, what's
Surprise,
this game,
surprise,
Sheikh?
yeah. So this is the game. In the end, both Finland and Sweden they're going to join.
Yeah, because it seems like
Are they
Americans
gonna-
have said if they're holding them on the F-16s. If you don't give us
Yeah.
Sweden, you don't deliver
His
Sweden, we
problem
don't deliver
is-
F-16s.
No, so his problem is some of the rebel Kurdish groups, some of their leadership went to Scandinavia in the past, and that's where they organized and raised finance. So he's using the NATO membership for them to abandon the Kurdish groups. So these are the Kurdish groups that fight the Turkish military. That's all it is here. Because if that wasn't the case, he'd accept it. He'd have no problem with it. And in fact, Sweden and Finland will become part of NATO.
Yeah, but
He just-
Finland
he
did.
just
Finland
wants-
has been accepted, but Finland also has the same issue, right? I mean, why is Sweden? I mean, why is he trying to get more out of US over Sweden, or what?
Yeah. So So the thing is, Sweden and Finland, they gave refugee status to some of these Kurds that ran away, and these Kurds then have been raising money, they've been organizing, and that's what Erdogan doesn't like. Erdogan's like, if you're going to join NATO, I want some guarantees, or you kick these guys out. So he just let. To be honest with you, you know, the Americans have got bigger problems to deal with. They've got their own problems in America to deal with. Biden's seems to be losing it mentally. So this is just like one small issue that's actually going on. Yeah, and obviously America's priority at the moment is really China and the Ukraine war. Like this is in fact, look, America's achieved more from the Ukraine invasion than even Russia. You know, NATO, Finland and Sweden are joining NATO. When Trump left, the transatlantic relationship was rock bottom. The day Russia invaded, the French, the Germans, the Brits have all got behind America. Right? So for America, this is just like, it's one loud thing going on in the corner there. Yeah. Obviously, Erdogan's very good at raising his issue. But remember, Erdogan criticized Israel, they didn't normalize relations. He's criticizing Finland and Sweden.
No,
they
but
will normalize relations.
what is the future of Europe, Sheikh? I mean, so NATO, the Turkey obviously matters here, and then you have growth of NATO, and then the Americans. What is America trying to do? Just make sure that Europe stays under the American hegemony, and
Okay, so look,
Turkey
we've got to
will
understand that-
manage that. Will Turkey manage Europe, Sheikh, for the Americans?
No, not Europe. I mean, Turkey's not that powerful. Turkey is what when
And
Turkey
it can play a
is used-
strategic game in Europe.
Yeah,
to
so it can
keep-
play a role. So the way America views Turkey is when it comes to the implementation of America's foreign policy agenda, Turkey can get it implemented. They can make it happen.
in
So
Europe also,
Iraq-
or just the Middle East?
So remember, Turkey technically is part of Europe. Turkey's the energy infrastructure to Europe comes through Turkey. So
Right.
whoever has influence over Turkey has influence over a very important country that technically Europe depend upon. So America will use that to its advantage. Yeah. So you've got Turkey on one side. You've obviously got, you know, all the former Soviet countries, Poland, Romania. America provides their security. So they're very close to America, probably more close to America than they are to the European Union. There is a question mark about European Union. There's a lot of anti-EU feeling across Europe. A lot of countries feel we've given up too much power to Brussels. And there's a question mark on will the EU survive in the long run. I mean, at the moment, they've got about 5 countries who potentially could join, but that's stopped at the moment. Because what most countries in the EU are saying, forget expanding, we need to sort out the internal. So Britain's the first country to leave the European Union. So now leaving the Union is a viable option. When Britain left the European Union, there's no rules on how you leave the European Union. The only rules that exist is how you join. Now that Britain's left, now it's a viable option to actually leave. Yeah. And you know, this is the place where 2 world wars happen. This is the place where nationalism is rife. This is the place where I mean, at the moment, you know, you got a lot of these sort of issues going on, but you know, Turkey's got to make a choice. Are you going to be a power for good? Are you going to shape the region to show that you're a force for good, or will you just implement America's agenda? And obviously, you know, America's agenda is that they don't want Europe to become independent. They want Europe to be reliant upon American security. On the other hand, America feels Europe needs to feel there's a threat. So Europe needs to feel Russia's a threat. But if Russia's a threat, then the Europeans will run to American security. So when Trump
But
finished,
let me ask you a question here. You saw that one of the shows we had Abu Talha on here, and then this Memory TV. They took a clip of what we had, and we were talking. So obviously there are people watching the show and things like this. When you say the analysis that you present, you don't think, obviously, I mean, Europeans are thinking about these things, and Americans, and they cannot do anything about this, or they're not looking at things the way we are, or
no, they can't. Economically, Europe's weak. Europe was the center of the world, really, until the rise of America. From 1500 until World War II, Spain, Portugal, Britain, France, Russia, Germany, they colonized the world. This was the center of the world. Since World War II, power shifted to North America. So what's happened since then is the French economy has declined, the British economy has declined, the German economy is dependent upon exports. Yeah, the Russian economy is still dependent upon energy. So these countries can't get out of the American umbrella. They lack the economic and military capabilities. I mean,
is that because it's so small, Sheikh? I mean, this whole the nation state build up, is this also affected Europe? How?
It's not just nation state, but you got to keep in mind that World War II consumed Europe, where they were no longer the powers anymore. They were bankrupted by World War I and World War II. So you find after World War II, the French and British plan was they're going to use their colonies to enrich themselves. But the Soviet Union and America both said straight away, no, you have to decolonize. You have to give up your colonies, right? And so these colonies became independent, and one by one, the Soviet Union and America swallowed them up. So remember, the British Empire was built upon the rape of India.
Right.
When the British came to India, actually, there were two sources of income for the British Empire. One was the slave trade, and one was India. Right? And when they gave India partition, and India no longer wanted to play ball with Britain anymore, that was the end of it. So you find after World War II, the British economies declined. I mean, I'll give you a funny stat. They don't have enough money in the budget for the military in the UK. So what they keep doing, they keep cutting the army. So at the moment, the British Armed Forces in total are about 80,000 ground troops. Iran's Revolutionary Guards are 120,000.
Oh,
so
wow.
Iran's Revolutionary Guards are bigger than the actual active army of the UK. And the army is still shrinking because they can't afford it. Britain can't afford the nuclear weapon, it's too expensive. So what do? They lease. Most of Britain's nuclear program is built in cooperation with America. So the missiles, Britain leases from America. But Britain wants the credibility. If you give up your nuclear weapon, you're not a power anymore. So this is the same. You look at the French, you look at the British, economically, militarily, they're weak. Politically, they want to engage. They want to be at the table. But India, Brazil, Russia, China, Turkey, their view is we're more powerful. We should be at that table rather than Britain and France. I think last year, India's economy for the first time was bigger than the British economy.
Yeah, the 5th largest economy in the world right now. Yeah.
Right. So why is India not on the Security Council of the UN? Why is Britain on there? There's an argument now.
Are we looking at, so now EU doesn't really matter. So, and NATO was built for, seems like basically was built for Europe.
Yeah, so NATO was built to stop the Soviet expansion. Once the Soviet Union collapsed, NATO sort of lost its purpose. So America was able to use the Balkan Wars to get NATO involved, and then it used NATO again in Afghanistan. But remember, 80% of NATO is America. So NATO is America. So what America said, if you join NATO, we will give you security. Right? And European Union has been trying to build its own security umbrella, but the problem is cost.
Money.
So some countries like Germany, they've outsourced. So this is what happened with Germany during the Russian invasion. Germany has been getting cheap energy from Russia. At the same time, it's been getting security from America. So it was in bed with both of these countries. And America said to them when Russia invaded, you need to make a choice now. You're either with us or you're with Russia. So the Germans abandoned Russia. They completely abandoned. This is a country where 80% of its energy comes from Russia. So Europe can't stand up to America. Yeah. And this is why America has a problem, because the Europeans are taking money and technology and investment from China. They are more than happy for China to invest in Europe. So 5G. And America's not happy about this. So Donald Trump was very open about this. But the Europeans' view is, well, you American companies are not going to invest in Europe. So if China is investing and actually is giving good conditions, why not? Obviously, the last thing America
What would be
wants
the
is
Chinese
China.
view on the Turkish situation, Sheikh? I mean, just last question here. What do you think the Chinese are thinking?
So,
And
you know,
does it
at the
make any
moment,
difference what happens in Turkey for China?
no, so at the moment, you know, if you look at China, it gets energy from the Middle East. It's got competition in its region, right? So they don't really cross each other, Turkey and China at the moment. They're in two different regions. Their priorities are different at the moment. Yeah. Even technology, obviously, China's developed itself and is developing its own technology. Yeah. So Turkey, you know, it turns to America, turns to Europe. So at the moment, they don't cross paths. At the moment,
But why would
however,
Turkey go to China, Sheikh? I mean, is there it's just because they're just too far away from each other? What?
Very interesting story that happened. Turkey has a missile defense system from America. So it needed to upgrade it in the 2010. So they went to America and they said, we want to upgrade the missile defense system. However, what we want this time is technology transfer, because Turkey wants to make it themselves. And you know, Raytheon, Boeing, they weren't too happy about this. So they dragged their feet, right? And then Turkey said, okay, if you're not going to transfer technology, we're going to go somewhere else. So the defense companies in America laughed at them and said, yeah, yeah. They went to China. And China said to them, we'll make missile defense systems with you and we'll transfer the technology, right? So the Americans weren't happy. Then the defense companies went to Turkey and said, okay, let's talk. Right? But look, this is a NATO country. You don't want Chinese tech with a NATO country. You're going to have a problem. But in the end, Turkey went to Russia and they got Russia's missile defense system because the Americans weren't prepared to give them the technology. So despite everything Erdogan does with America, there's something they're not prepared to give him. And this is a lesson the Pakistani rulers need to learn. As much as you do for America, there are some things America will just not give you. Right? But they don't learn that. And our rulers don't realize that they think we're allies of America, that America will give us technology. But which Muslim country is America giving technology to? I mean, they've kicked Turkey off the F-35 program.
What is that?
So the F-35 is the next generation fighter jet.
Yes. I guess they were happy with getting F-16s. Yeah, I remember this. Yeah. They told, but they didn't give it to
Turkey. No, so what happened was, rather than America developing this jet themselves, which is very costly, America built a coalition, all the allies of America, that we build it together. So when we build it together, we share the cost, and then all of us will obviously purchase the jet as well. So Turkey actually got involved quite deep into this project, yeah? And then I think about 2015-16, there was a lot of congressmen that just weren't happy with Erdogan. He's getting too powerful. So what they did was, one of the things they did was they forced the government to kick Turkey off the F-35 program. And Trump was against that, actually. And this is a very funny story. You know, when Trump came to power, Turkish fighter pilots were in the Texas base learning how to fly the F-35. In the same week, Congress passed a law that Turkey's got to be kicked off the program. So that shows you, even in America, they're divided over Turkey. There's not a unified policy on Turkey. Right? And that's why you find, up until 2010, Americans were very happy. They liked the Islam coming from Turkey. They liked the Islam in name, but it's not very Islamic. They liked Turkish Islam. The Europeans liked it as well. Then as Erdogan became powerful, they don't like that. You know, we want
even the Islam that they, even the Turkish Islam, they don't like.
Originally, if you read all the Rand reports in the early 2000s, they were very positive about Turkish Islam. Yeah, this, you know, Turkish form of Islam, which basically is Islam in name only. It's not in Islam in action. That's really what it is. Yeah, they love that, obviously. But they're turning against Erdogan isn't his Islam. They're turning against Erdogan is, okay, this guy's getting a bit too powerful. He's going to get to a point where he won't follow our orders, or he won't listen to us because he doesn't need to. He's too powerful. But they're divided. So the Europeans are united on this. They don't like Erdogan.
So next Erdogan's 10 years in Turkey is again Erdogan's decade.
Yeah, so Erdogan, 2023 is the 100-year anniversary of the Turkish Republic. and then next year, March, is the 100-year anniversary of the destruction of the Khilafah. So what Erdogan is saying, forget Atatürk, I am Turkey. 20 years, look at what I've done to the country, right? His problem then is the day after this, because basically there's a lot of obstacles coming. Who's going to take over after Erdogan? There's no plan. Erdogan wants to be here forever.
So when you mean plan, let me ask you, Sheikh. So when you mean plan, do you mean that he actually himself did not have a plan for Turkey, number one, and number two, he didn't have a plan for who will succeed?
Well, so his transition plan. So he's been in power. So Erdogan's been in power for 20 years, yeah, which is quite unique. I mean, unless you're a monarch, you reign in power for that long. So he needs to arrange a orderly transition. He can't be in power all his life, can he? Right? So if you look at his actions, though, he doesn't plan to leave. He's got rid of everyone in his own party that could oppose him. So Abdullah Gül, who was the president, was pushed out of the party. Yeah, now he's actually against Erdogan. Yeah, you had his foreign minister and his economic advisor Ahmed Davutoglu. He was pushed out as well. Right? He was in bed with Fethullah Gulen originally. Yeah, and then he pushed him away as well. So Erdogan's got rid of. He's got rid of everyone that could be opposition to him. He's got his family, his daughter, the sons involved.
Yeah,
but
his sons are quite wealthy.
If you wanted these guys, but if you wanted these guys to take over, they would go to America, meet congressmen. They would go on big meetings, big summits. They don't. So the way I see is Erdogan doesn't plan to leave, which means probably opposition within his own party will start eventually. The opposition is more unified now in his own country. The economy is going to get worse. It's not going to get better.
There's no plan. There's no plan, yeah.
And in America,
he's going to have to pay that money back.
The opposition against Erdogan is growing as well, right? So really, Erdogan won the election. Now he can only lose, right? So he's got an option now. You either just leave and pass over to your party, but people like him don't. The problem he's going to have is he needs to be involved in politics in some form or shape, because if he leaves, the opposition was saying if they won, they would have started court cases against him because of corruption.
Okay, but here, let me ask you this, and there is corruption too. I didn't even come close to that. But so let's say, can he bring back the Khilaf? Does he have himself as Erdogan?
If Erdogan wanted to bring back Khilafah, he could, but that's not his agenda.
This is, or it's not.
If he wanted,
you don't think there'll be opposition in the army? There'll be no opposition in public opposition.
In 2016, when there was a coup, he purged the whole army. He purged everybody. So he controls the army. In the media, he's got rid of all the opposition. He controls the state. He controls the government. He controls the presidency. He controls his party. He controls the army. He's got more power than he knows what to do with it.
So he can. What would be the plan, Sheikh? Just declare the Khilafah? What would he won't have to make any changes in the army? He won't have to make any.
No, but remember, if Erdogan announces Khilafah,
can he be killed in the process? Is there?
No. His supporters believe that's where he's going anyway. They believe that's his agenda.
Yes,
that's Sultan, why they support him. Yeah. So if he does that,
they call him the Sultan.
He's just delivering what he apparently promised them. Don't view Khilafah as he's deviating from where he's going. Khilafah is him going in the path everybody believes he's going.
Except him.
So if he establishes Khilafah, people say, Alhamdulillah, finally. I've been hearing it for 20 years you were going to do this. Finally, he did it. Yeah. And then remember, he's in a strategic location. His military is developing. I mentioned to you all the key issues he's involved in.
Sheikh, you don't think that is the plan? Meaning, I understand you're saying, look, he would have been there for 20 years. But if somebody was to ask that, look, man, I mean, the guy built the army, the economy is in shambles. I understand that. But he's built a strategic position for himself in Turkey. There's a lot going for him. People cannot just come and take out Turkey. So he needed this time. So now maybe we expect something. Well,
okay. If this conversation was in 2004-5, you're right. But it's 2023. What else do we need to see? He was the strongest person in Turkey in 2010. His party got rid of the Kemalists. His party defeated the opposition.
Right, he was in Istanbul. He took Istanbul. He was
Everything. He was powerful in 2010. Yeah. Look, I'll give you a simple example. My wife has wanted me to clean my garden for a year, and
Tell
I
me
find an
about it.
excuse not to do it. I find an excuse not to do it. It's too hot. It's too cold.
It's
Yeah.
not just you,
She
bro.
realized he's got no plan. He's got no agenda.
Yeah.
So I keep saying, in the summer we'll do it, in the winter we'll do it.
Yeah.
This is what Erdogan's doing. When he says in the future we'll do it, that's because he doesn't want to do it there. And in the future, he'll find another excuse. So the funniest one is when people say in 2023 he's going to end the Treaty of Lausanne. And I said, why did he have to wait to 2023? He could have done that in 2010. Greece was in economic crisis 2008. Greece is collapsed as a country. If Turkey takes over those islands, there's nothing Greece can do. But Erdogan's not interested. So Erdogan uses that to say, I'm going to do that. I'm going to make Turkey strong. He has no. He doesn't.
But
he doesn't
Sheikh,
even plan
you
to do it.
can't. You don't think there could be a Ukraine type opposition to him if he tries to do that? I'm just, if he
So
starts.
if he took over those Greek islands, firstly, legally, he has a right to them. That's the
Okay.
first thing. Secondly, okay, what they're going to do? The Greece can't do anything. Greece is finished economically.
Can a NATO country, if there are, can they go to war against each other? That's not
No, but
part.
this is the thing. If the French say we're unhappy about that, does America really want a war between two NATO countries? And to be honest with you, the French have got more important things to deal with than Greece, Ireland, and Turkey. The French do use this for their advantage. They say Macron was trying to show he's a strong leader to the French, so he goes, I'm standing against Erdogan, the authoritarian leader. When push comes to shove, he ain't going to do anything because the French have got more important issues.
Yeah.
The thing is, the only obstacle we have is our ruler himself, because Erdogan's unique. He controls everything. All the obstacles, he's got rid of them. Right? And he got rid of them 10 years ago. He didn't get rid of them today. I mean, the last obstacle was the army 2016.
But Sheikh, how can he do that without a plan? He's a shrewd politician. He has a plan,
No, I agree
but
with you.
not a plan. You're saying he doesn't have a
No,
plan.
I agree with you. He needs a plan, but even before a plan, is that even his agenda? But if you got an agenda,
How is he making
then you will
moves
develop a
without
plan,
an
won't you?
agenda, Sheikh? I mean, there is no agenda. He's just making moves for his own power, just to be in
No,
power.
what he's doing is he's making moves for power, for control, and to build his own name. Which that might sound a bit shallow, but remember, most of human history, most wars have been because of power and control. Go through the whole of human history, most wars have been for power and control. Why did Trump give up his businesses and his reality TV career to become president? It couldn't have been money. He had all the money in the world. It can't be to make America great again, because he hasn't got a clue how to make America great again. Really, it's just for power and control. If you look at the human condition throughout human history, many things have happened, and many people go into politics just for themselves. They want the power, right? So Erdogan, he had some minimal agenda, yeah, and that was okay. We want to take power, want to be in the country. Beyond that, he's got no agenda. And I say this after 20 years of looking at what he's done. Like I said, if this was
Look, Sheikh,
2005,
but I know. But see, look, in Turkey, there are a lot of people happy with him.
yeah.
A lot of people are
Look,
happy with him.
I do understand this. Look, if I lived in Turkey and my daughters couldn't wear hijab, my daughter gets a job in a university, she can't wear hijab. The secularists are closing the institutions and everything.
She couldn't even go to school at all if she was wearing hijab.
Yeah,
Forget about getting a job.
I get that. Yeah, so I get that. And Erdogan's come. Now I can practice my Islam. Our Sophia is now a mosque. I'm really happy. That's fine, right?
I mean, you make it look. Okay,
No, that's all great. And alhamdulillah,
Sure,
in Turkey.
sure,
But
fine.
in 2030, when Erdogan comes to the end of his third term, yeah,
Then
are
what?
we still going to be saying we're happy with Ayah Sophia and we're happy that our girls can wear hijab? Like, we need to. What's the next part of the plan? Right? And what you
No,
find
but
is,
I know I keep saying this will be the last thing, but okay, so let's say if Erdogan he's in power, he allows the Islam to, even individual Islam to grow. There are ulama who are teaching in the masajid, there are madaris around and things like this. Couldn't that be? Can Erdogan be the conveyor belt for the coming Islamic, sincere politicians to turn Islam, to bring Islam to Turkey? Can he be? It's just a question out there, but it is.
The thing with Erdogan is he doesn't need to be the guy that brings the sincere people. He's the guy that's there. Like, why is Erdogan himself?
But he's not
it?
sincere.
Why do we have to? Well, his agenda.
Or he's saying that, look, I see what's happening in Europe. I know what's happening with the Americans, the mind of Americans. I know what's happening in all these areas. So I'm gonna give you the environment that you need to build the right people, and you bring it about. I'm giving you another 5 years.
No, but the AKP party, they have stood for elections that we are that party. We're the party that's going to bring back Islam. We're the party that's going to help the Ummah. So that's why the Ummah supported them. So what they can't do after 20 years is, we're not that party now. So that party now needs to come into power. But that's what you've been saying for the last 20 years, that you are that party. You are the party with the Islamic agenda. You are the party that's going to help the Ummah. You're the party that's going to help the Muslims practice their faith.
You're saying it's time to deliver. At least do it now. It's 20 years.
It's time to deliver. And, I think 8 years is a long time. 20 years. Yeah. 20 years is not just a long time. You've outlived your welcome. We should be talking about Khilafah in past tense. We should be talking about Islamic rule in past tense. We should be talking, it's been done now. What lessons have we learned? The fact that after 20 years we're still talking, 20 years is too long, isn't it? 2 decades.
Sure.
It's too long. That means that's the reason why. But remember, Erdogan's a guy that has delivered on many other issues. So why is he not delivering on this one? So it's not an issue of he can't deliver. It's not an issue of he doesn't have the capability. He's shown he's more than capable.
So what's going on here? What is it? Let's end it at this talk. At this point, what is it? Why can't he deliver? What's stopping him? He doesn't know. Does he not know what this system is?
No, he knows. It's for Erdogan. Look, Erdogan grew up with a number of politicians. Yeah, you had Erdogan Khan, they joined his group. You had Abdullah Gül, you had all these guys, right? So, all of them, wanted to get into politics. They wanted to represent the areas they came from, their people, conservative people. Their agenda was never more than that. That was the environment they grew up in. They grew up in the environment where it was hardcore secularism in that country. They grew up where anytime the Muslim lot got close to rule, the army would overthrow them, right? This is the environment they grew up in. So his agenda was just to change that. His agenda was never more than that. That's always been his agenda. The difference with him is because of the Islamic statements he makes, because of Palestine and because of the Ummah. People see that, and because these are in line with people's sentiments, that's why they love him. So people love Erdogan for the right reason. But our judgment on Erdogan cannot be on the emotion. Our judgment needs to be on his actions and what the Quran tells us. So what we can't do is, emotionally we love him, fine. I get that. But halal and haram is
time to deliver. It's time to deliver.
It doesn't change because our emotions change, yeah?
Sure.
So that's why now, look, he's abandoning the Syrian people. That should be enough for people to reconsider. Yeah, that's a major thing.
I mean, the fear of the Syrians, at least in Turkey, was that, if the opposition comes, the Kemalists, they're going to come and remove them. And this was the politics that was playing. And subhanAllah, seems like that's what's going to happen anyways, but it has to be slow. I mean, I guess they're talking to all these Arab countries around and saying, okay, you have to build the infrastructure now, and then slowly 1 million, 2 million, whatever, in the next 5-6 years. So basically his term will be getting the Syrians back to Syria, rebuild Syria in a bit.
They will do that. I think his main thing is going to be domestic. It's going to be fixing the economy. What you can do about the economy, yeah? You've obviously got the Ukraine war going on still. You've got cost of living crisis, and even Europe has got a big energy problem because they've abandoned Russia now.
Yeah.
They're going to need Turkey. They're going to need Turkish pipelines. They're going to need all the routes that come through Turkey. So Turkey's importance is only.
So Turkey
is only going to grow. Turkey's importance isn't going to reduce. It's only going to grow.
That's important. It's going to grow, and that's what they have to look at, how big a role they can play. I mean, they can. So they could take leadership if they wanted of Europe at least.
Look, if Turkey took the Greek islands, Turkey could say to Europe, "You want your energy? If you want your energy, this is the cost." The Greeks have no problem. The Greeks can't do anything about it. The Greeks who own...
They'll probably be better off with Turkey.
There are islands that Turkey can see. They're 200-300 miles from Greek territory, but they belong to Greece. If you're in Anatolia, all those islands off the mainland, they're Greek islands. Even though the Greeks can't see them, the Turks can see them. That's the reality you have here. So the thing is, if Erdogan's agenda was we're going to expand, we're going to unify the Muslim world, then he will do this. But this is important. That's not his agenda. His agenda is where Turkey, I mean, look, he got sworn in as the president, and he's praising Atatürk, he's praising the constitution. I mean, he's doing stuff which is completely un-Islamic. Right? This is the reality. People don't watch that, but they watch when he went to Hagia Sophia.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at the whole thing he does.
This is the minds of the Muslims, Sheikh.
Because remember, we've had leaders in the past who have been very anti-American, and then later on we find out they were in America's pockets. So, our leaders who say Islamic things, we need to scrutinize them more. Because we've had many rulers who are very Islamic, but later on we find out they've sold us out. Yeah. So the ones that are Islamic or say Islamic things, we need to scrutinize them even more. And with Erdogan, you're scrutinizing over a 20-year period. One term you can argue, give him time, he's getting his feet in the ground, fine. I accept that. But that's not the reality here. The reality here, we're talking about a guy who's been in power for 2 decades, and he's going to be in power like I said, 45% of Turks have known no one other than Erdogan as their leader.
Yeah.
That's how long he's been. And many people around the world, rulers, would give an arm and a leg to win 7 elections.
Yeah, and be in power for 20 years. And
20 years. I mean, the only people, like I said, it's only the monarchies who stay that long, and they don't have elections.
All right, brothers and sisters, with that, first of all, Jazakallah khair, Brother Adnan. SubhanAllah, it's always amazing to have you here. These kind of discussions. Really, the Muslims, and people are learning. One thing I would suggest is that you need to write a book, and I'm sure you're working on that. You need to seriously write a book. You need to, the understanding that you have needs to really, we have to figure out a way to get that to the Muslims in general. I mean, we don't have the type of historians that we need. Every time I talk to you, every single time, subhanAllah, I learned so much. And it's rare, Sheikh. It's rare, subhanAllah. So I would be the first one to buy it. I would be the first one to promote it. And I'm really, really asking, work on this, Sheikh. With what
so good news, I'm actually working on something at the moment.
Okay, so it's a book.
It's a book where I want to, my working title is the DNA of politics. How to understand politics, how to understand what's going on. And yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. It's still quite early, but that's the plan. That's the direction.
Inshallah. So it's going to be called DNA of politics.
Yeah.
Just politics, or is Islamic politics, or whatever? I mean,
I called it DNA because DNA is the basic building blocks of life. Yeah. So what's the basic building blocks of politics? So, the nations, their competition, what are the key things you need to know? So it's, the stuff you're asking, like building, that's basically what it's going to be about.
SubhanAllah. I can't wait till it comes out. Inshallah. Please, you got to keep us in the loop with this, Sheikh. However we can help you. Inshallah. All right, brothers and sisters, that's it for Islamic Oasis Live today. Hopefully you gather around, make sure that your children, the historians, those who want to learn Islam, those who want to understand the politics of the Muslim countries, Turkey, all of these things, and this is one of the best ways to teach them. Yes, I understand this one was a bit long, but every moment was so interesting. I was learning, and you couldn't finish the conversation. So please make sure that you kids hear this stuff. Make sure that if you're trying to build leaders amongst your families, amongst the Muslim community, these are the type of conversations we have to have. Ideas need to be discussed this way, rather than just discussing events. So with that, Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. We'll see you next week, inshallah.
لا لن يطول الظلام ديننا لن يضام نحن جيل همام نحن فينا عمر لا 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 لن يطول الظلام ديننا لن يضام نحن جيل همام نحن فينا عمر صبح بدا نور ظهر نجم وشمس وقمر ألقى على الدنيا الدرر هذا عمر هذا عمر كل البرايا تنتظر أيامه البيض الغرر كي تستفيد من العبر. هذا عمر، هذا عمر. لا، لن تدوم الجراح، بل سيأتي الصباح. نحن أهل الكفاح، نحن فينا عمر. لا، لن تدوم الجراح، بل سيأتي الصباح. نحن أهل الكفاح.